Like, not a big deal.
Because when you're a Winchester,
gun safety is the least of your worries.
You're too masculine for this.
Joe and Dean have a whisper argument, and then Dean, like, lies for Joe. I feel like he's more afraid of Ellen, but Joe is in his face, like, right in front of him. And Joe has done even more research that didn't make it into her file on the history of the building, which used to be a warehouse and was converted into apartments a few months ago, which I don't know if I believe, but okay. But anyway, it's a really nice apartment. And there was nothing there before 1924. It was an empty field. Joe knows her shit about this whole case, and Dean is still acting way too skeptical of her, and they're like snipping at each other about fidgeting. Dean's like pacing, and that's bothering Joe, and then Joe has like a little dagger that she's twirling around, and that's aggravating Dean, and Sam is just trying desperately to keep steering them back to go over the next investigative step. He's like, well, what about this thing? Stop fighting. Well, what about this thing? Stop fighting.
And in his brain, he's like, this is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
And Dean's like, okay, fine. If we're going to work this case, then I'm just going to glue myself to Joe, and we're going to work it together so that at least when Ellen finds out that Joe is here, I can at least tell her that I did not take my eyes off of her. Which was a good plan if he had stuck to it.
It's like, Ellen is on her way, but...
You keep telling yourself that, Winchester. You forget to factor who Joe is.
Joe says that she knows full well that she's the spirits type, and they should be using her as bait. And Dean's like, first of all, no. And second of all, it's not that I don't think you can do the job because you're a woman. I think women can do the job just fine, which is probably like one of the first times we've seen Dean say something about gender and hunting that wasn't sexist.
He's learning.
But he says that the reason he thinks that Joe can't do the job is because Joe has all these romanticized notions about hunting and hunters because she's never really been out in the world. And Joe's like, you sound like my mom. And Dean's like, that's not a bad thing at all. And he starts to say something else, but then tells her to forget it. And then when she presses, he says that she should feel lucky to have a mom at all, especially a mom who cares this much and a parent who wants something for her that isn't hunting. And Dean tells her that she has options. He started hunting as a little kid and has never been able to want anything else. And he sees the fact that he loves the job as proof that he's twisted and damaged and broken. And Joe suggests maybe she's twisted too.
No, Joe. No, you aren't.
Not the way that Dean Winchester is. Dean doesn't comment on that. Instead, he reminds Joe that her mom loves her and wants something more for her beyond the dysfunctional hunter lifestyle, and that those are good things to have in a parent, and that if she throws those things away now, they might be hard to find later on.
Yeah, speaking from experience.
Yeah, as the recently
gosh.
orphaned, forced into hunting as a child, Dean Winchester.
Good.
Yay.
You notice, though, this is all the things that Sam wanted Dean to say to him. When Sam was, a little bit younger than Joe, and Dean wasn't able to tell Sam these things. Dean actively encouraged Sam to be a hunter. And, here we are. But
there is sadness. There is much sadness.
Joe, freaks out about something in a vent, and then Dean smells some chloroform. Try not to think about when Dean's been exposed to chloroform in the past to recognize the smell.
I mean, he's a hunter. He's probably gotten exposed to chloroform lots of times.
There's a lot of theories that John was chloroforming them.
Don't you get brain damage from too much chloroform?
Mm-hmm.
Have you met the Winchesters?
John Winchester was encouraging them to do a lot of dangerous shit. But anyway, I've read so many stories and theories where John was training them, and he would do training exercises, including chloroforming them. Dean reaches into the vent that Joe was freaked out by, and he pulls out a chunk of gross, bloody blonde hair. And then we're with another new blonde.
Yeah, we just discovered that the ghost is a pig. Clean up your leftovers.
She has ectoplasm dripping from her ceiling, and her ceiling is cracking open, and she tries to leave, and a hand reaches out of a vent and grabs her.
Yeah, no. This guy never heard of a shower. His hands are so dirty.
Clean your nails.
Dean wakes up in a recliner chair where he finds that Joe has been awake all night, even though the boys have left her the bed. Sam's getting coffee. There's no mention of where Sam was sleeping last night. The way that Dean is laying on this chair is actually a reference to Marty McFly in Back to the Future. I love those movies so much.
They're fun.
They're amazing.
Yeah. But this is a position that Marty McFly is seen in while sleeping a lot in the course of the 3 movies.
Oh, yeah.
Dean offers Joe a larger knife, and Joe shows him her tiny little knife and tells him that it belonged to her dad, William Anthony Harvell. And Dean says, sorry, my mistake, and takes his knife back.
The man whose initials are WA.
It's so sad. It's probably all she has left of her dad.
It literally is.
Yay.
And Joe asks what Dean remembers about his dad because, you know, his dad's been dead for like 5 minutes and Joe's dad's been dead for 11 to 19 years. Tune into our Ellen and Joe episode next week to find out why that timeline is so broad. As though, you know, the two things are like comparable. I think that, you know, she should have just asked about his mom or something like that, you know, who died when Dean was about the same age, that at least closer in age than to what Joe was.
Yeah, I guess since they were talking about dads and hunters and whatnot.
Dean doesn't answer right away, probably because he's trying to think of a first memory of John that he can tell this girl that isn't absolutely terrible.
Is there one?
Dean settles on a memory of when he was about 6 or 7 and John being proud of him because they went shooting cans and bottles off fences for the first time and he was a naturally good shot. I consulted John's journal, which puts this as November 14th, 1985, just short of Dean's 7th birthday. John decided that Dean was old enough to go shooting because in the previous entry, John came home from a hunt absolutely wrecked and Dean emotionally supported him through that at age 6. And John's like, well, if he's old enough to do that, I guess he's probably old enough that I should start teaching him how to hunt.
Aww.
He has emotions. Let's stamp them out through violence.
Oh, look at that. He's already more of an adult than I am.
Was not on my watch.
Dean trails off midway through the story. Like, he can't even assign pride as an emotion to John. Like, Joe has to fill in that that's what he was gonna say. And then Joe tells Dean a story about how her dad would come home from a hunt and, like, their family would be back together again and be happy, and says that she wants to do the job because she feels close to her dad when she is. Sam comes back from his coffee run with no coffee because another girl in the building disappeared, Teresa Ellis, the girl whose ceilings and walls were just cracking open.
So there's that. That happened.
Yeah, Joe finds a photo of the field that the building is built on and notices that the building next door was a prison. And Joe calls Ash for some research assistance. Ash is not present in this episode. We call him, we talk about him a lot. He's not here, and that's a disappointment for me.
For everyone.
Yeah.
She threatens that if he tells Ellen on her, she'll do something to him with pliers. And I'm assuming that Ash's teeth or his are under threat here. Editing KJ here with no microphone, so sorry about the audio quality, but past KJ used like a silly euphemism. Ash's dick was on the line. It was his penis. I don't know why we weren't just open about saying that, but we weren't. I meant penis.
Or even worse, his laptop.
I
or
feel like
possibly all three.
this felt like bodily harm.
Yeah, I would say so.
Wonder if Ash has ever been tortured before.
Yeah, I don't know.
By Ellen? Probably.
Oh dear. It's just, the part of that mysterious backstory that we're allowed to think up anything for.
Yeah. Joe says that the prison was a Moyamensing prison built in 1835 and demolished in 1963. It was actually abandoned in 1963 and torn down in 1967. And in real life, there's now an Acme supermarket where the prison once stood.
Cool.
Yeah, fun fact I looked up. Joe says that the people who got the death penalty were executed in the field where the building that they're in now stands. And so they start looking at a list of people who were executed there. Sam recognizes a name on the list, Herman Webster Mudgett. I like that Sam's the first one to recognize this name because later in this show, Sam is revealed to have a serious interest in true crime. And once again, I did recently graduate with a major in criminal justice, so I get it.
And you've been listening to a true crime podcast for many, many years.
Yeah, Sam and I would have lots to talk about. Herman Webster Mudgett is the real name of H.H. Holmes, and Joe doesn't know anything about him, mostly so that the audience can have it explained to us. And Dean and Sam are happy to fill in the details, and Dean says that they made up the term multi-murderer to describe the crimes. I'm saving all my H.H. Holmes facts for the end, but what's important here is that the boys tell Joe that he confessed to 27 murders, but many people think he did more, and he liked pretty petite blondes, and he had a murder castle in Chicago.
There was this one episode of Lore where it began with a wedding, and then the introduction was the groom had a dark secret, and then later the narrator was like, so his name was Herman Mudgett, and I was like, I don't want to know his secret anymore.
I listened to that episode of Lore. It's really good.
It is good, but also...
I'm not sure what the direction was given to Jensen and Jared in this whole scene, but Jared is, like, enjoying telling this story to Joe. I'm almost wondering if, like, what they were told to do was be, like, pretend that you're trying to scare Joe. Like, you're telling a scary story, like, around a campfire. Sam is, like, smiling and, like, getting enjoyment out of recounting this. Like, he's a true crime podcaster or something. Like,
nerd.
Sam informs Joe that they can't burn the bones because H.H. Holmes requested that his remains be entombed in concrete to prevent the desecration of his corpse. This is also true.
He would, wouldn't he?
Joe is so confused as to why anybody would request to be buried in concrete, and Sam's like, well, he kept his victims, like, alive in the walls, and he was worried about, like, grave desecration. The important thing is that, because of this whole alive in the walls, like, history, there's a really good chance that Teresa, the girl from last night, is still alive somewhere in the walls, so they just start smashing through the walls all over this building. Yeah. When Sam is explaining this whole thing to Joe, he is showing a bunch of photos of the Murder Castle Hotel, and one victim photo is the only victim photo we see in this episode from the historical, like, Alive Times victims. And this photo is important later. Again, you're not going to want to miss KJ's mythology segment at the end of this episode.
Stay tuned.
Remember this photo. And I have some questions now about where the other people in this building are, because they are smashing through walls all over this building on multiple floors, and no one's asking any questions.
Hope you got insurance.
Joe and Dean get to a point where Dean can't fit anymore. The wall gets too narrow, and Joe's like, I'll just go on my own.
How about not?
And she sees some ectoplasm, and then she screams, and Dean loses her call. So he smashes through the wall, like, where he thinks that she's gonna be, and Joe is gone, but her flip phone is left behind. Good old 2006 flip phone.
Oh gosh, no.
Joe's flip phone is somehow girlier than Sam and Dean's flip phones. I don't know what it is.
It's got more curves.
I think it's like they have like black phones and Joe's is like silver.
See?
And it's like got like sharp edges, whereas theirs is like a hunk of plastic.
Flip phones, the true monster in this episode.
It's all sleek. It looks like it should be on Lara Croft's bell.
Literally, I think that's what it is. It's like sleek and like theirs are bulky as shit. Probably Nokia's, because you can't break fucking Nokia phones.
No, you cannot.
Sam takes another look at the building plans and H.H. Holmes' murder castle plans. And Sam's like, well, here's a sewer system that runs under the building that they don't use anymore. Let's see if we can, like, find that. Like, maybe that's where she is. And Joe wakes up in the dark. Clearly, a previous victim has tried to claw her way out of this box that Joe is in. And Teresa's, like, there. And she is completely freaking out, understandably.
Oh, yeah. She's doing better than I would in that situation.
One of them gets grabbed by the ghost. We cut to commercial. Sam has procured a metal detector from some unknown place, and he is using it to follow the sewer lines. I don't know if that would work, but okay.
Don't worry about it.
They start digging, and they find an access door. There are large visible insects, like, where they're about to climb down, and I'm sorry, Joe, I'm not climbing down there.
No. You can die.
You can die down there. I'm not climbing down there.
Nice knowing ya.
Joe is trying to break out, and when the ghost touches her, she stabs him with a little dagger from her dad, and turns out that it's made of pure iron.
Love that for it.
Yeah, it was handy.
It's like it's a hunter's knife or something.
I don't think that the knife that Dean gave her was iron, so good thing she didn't take Dean's, like, giant knife that he gave her.
Where'd you get that? A hardware store?
Also, that's actually really funny. But anyway, it's easier to conceal the little knife, too.
Yeah.
True.
And use it in a small space.
Yeah. She does not have a lot of elbow room in this thing.
Nope.
Sam and Dean are crawling through this thankfully unused but unfortunately still wet and disgusting sewer, and they find her just as the ghost is trying to smother her. Sam busts out Teresa, while Dean is breaking Joe out of her, like, little holding cell area.
I'm sorry, but the way you phrase, like, busts out Teresa, like, I know what you're saying, but also it sounds like she's their secret weapon.
She is very much not. Teresa is useless.
You are not prepared for Teresa.
Teresa also is not looking great. Like, she's only been in there since, like, the night before, but she literally looks like she's been starving down there for weeks. Like, she is, like, limp in Jared's arm.
Oh no, Teresa!
Dean tells Joe that they actually do want her to be bait after all, and they leave her down in the main, like, room. And when the ghost of H.H. Holmes comes in, the boys, like, complete the salt ring, trapping him in there, and they start closing all the grates behind them. And when they get up there, Joe's like, yes, this job is worthwhile. And then she's like, well, what happens if someone, like goes down there and disturbs the salt ring, or it rains or something?
Well done.
And cue Dean, who just steals a cement truck, and they use it to fill in the sewer line behind them.
Poetic justice.
There's a plan.
That seems like a problem. But okay.
It's for future people to work on.
Yeah, they're gonna ruin the sewer. Like, it's an unused sewer system, but, like, a street's gonna, like, flood or something.
That's fine.
My problem with that solution is, what if the pouring of the cement disturbs the salt circle?
Yeah. Well, they closed the grate, so, like, really they're just making it so no one can open that grate again.
I guess.
But there's another way to get in, isn't there? Like, all sewers have, like, multiple openings.
But then we'll have no exit part 2.
So there's the